Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It was just past midnight. The clock ticked slow, louder than usual, like it knew something was off. The house was dim, quiet, almost too quiet for a Friday night. I sat in the low amber glow of the bedside lamp, wrapped in my robe, heart pacing faster than it should have. My husband, Ul, had come home late again. No calls. No texts. Just silence. But this time, things were different. Because I wasn't alone. And the person in my room, on my bed, wasn't who anyone would expect. Ul and I had been married for 6 years. On the outside, everything looked perfect. Big house in a calm Dallas suburb, photos on the wall that smiled with fake memories, dinner parties where we played the part. But behind the smiles, cracks had started to show. Ul had been staying out later, coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. Work, he always said. Long meetings, heavy traffic, tired eyes. And I believed him. Until I didn't. That night, it wasn't just the late hour that made everything feel tense. It was the way the door creaked open slowly, the way footsteps echoed down the hallway like they were trying not to be heard. But I already knew those footsteps weren't his. They belonged to someone else, someone familiar, yet unexpected. Ul's son from his first marriage, Jason, had been visiting for a few weeks. He was older now, 25, quiet but observant, carrying the calm confidence of someone who always knew what he wanted. He and I had always gotten along, friendly, even close, but nothing ever crossed a line. Until tonight. Tonight, something changed. We were talking earlier that evening, sharing a drink in the kitchen, the kind of conversation that slips into comfort too easily. The air felt warmer, his eyes lingered longer, and the distance between us started to feel smaller. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect it. But when the lightning outside lit up the windows and the thunder rolled low, we found ourselves back in my room, where we were never supposed to be. Then, just as the tension hit its peak, the sound of keys rattling in the front door broke the stillness. Ul was home. Everything froze. Jason looked at me, eyes wide but calm, his voice low, "What do you want me to do?" And in that moment, I had to decide what story I was going to tell, and what secret I was willing to keep. Because when Ul walks through that door, nothing in this house will ever be the same again. The door creaked open just a little more. I didn't breathe. Jason didn't move. The hallway light stretched across the floor like a spotlight, creeping toward the bed where we both sat frozen. I could hear the faint sound of Ul setting his keys on the counter, the low rumble of his voice as he spoke to himself, probably complaining about work again. Just like he always did. But something felt different this time. Maybe because I was different now. Maybe because Jason was still here, and the air between us was charged in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. My heart beat hard against my chest. Not from fear, at least not entirely. It was the mix of guilt and adrenaline, the strange electricity that comes when you know you're standing at the edge of a line you can't uncross. Jason leaned a little closer, just enough for his shoulder to brush mine. Warmth flooded my skin. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Everything about that moment, the way he looked at me, the way I didn't pull away, it said too much already. I met Ul back in college. We got married fast, before either of us really knew what kind of people we'd become. He was charming back then, ambitious, always reaching for more. But the years wore him down. Or maybe they revealed who he really was. Work first. Cold silences second. He stopped seeing me. But Jason noticed things. Little things. The kind of things I'll used to care about, but hadn't for years. He remembered how I liked my coffee, how I bit my lip when I was nervous, how I hummed when I cooked. And that night, he saw something in me that I had forgotten was even there. Down the hall, I heard Earl's shoes hit the floor with a heavy thud. He was heading to the bedroom. I stood up quickly, heart racing, trying to make sense of what I was supposed to do. Jason's hand brushed my wrist as if asking one last question. Are we stopping? Or are we continuing the lie? The doorknob turned. My breath caught in my throat. And just like that, the door began to open. The door opened slowly. Earl stepped in, his eyes tired, shirt untucked, phone still in his hand. He didn't notice right away, his mind somewhere else, probably still half at work. Jason had slipped off the bed and stood near the window, back casual, but his face unreadable. I stayed near the corner of the room, acting like I'd just gotten up to grab water or check the window. My pulse was still racing. Earl looked up at us finally, eyebrows tightening just a little. Didn't know you were still awake, he said, voice low, almost flat. I couldn't sleep, I said quickly. My voice sounded too normal, too practiced. Jason was just checking on me. The storm was loud. Jason nodded once, calm as ever. She looked kind of shaken, so I stayed for a minute. Hope that's okay. Earl didn't say anything at first. His eyes shifted between us like he was trying to read something in the space we stood in. I felt a drop of sweat roll down my spine, but I didn't move. He gave a tired sigh, then started unbuttoning his sleeves. Yeah. Long night. Don't let me keep you. I'm gonna shower. Jason gave me one last look before he walked out. Just one glance, like a silent question left hanging in the air. And then it was just me and Earl. I turned toward the bed, pretending to fluff the pillows as if nothing had just happened. As if the air hadn't been thick with tension seconds ago. But it didn't end there. The next morning, the silence between Earl and me had grown louder. He barely looked up from his phone during breakfast. Jason, on the other hand, made coffee, helped with dishes, and asked me about my plans for the day with the same soft tone he always used. I noticed the way Earl watched him from the corner of his eye. He said nothing, but he was starting to notice. Maybe not everything. But something. Later that day, Earl left for another meeting. No explanation, no timeline. Just his usual vanishing act. And Jason stayed back. We talked more, longer than before. About life. About how fake things can feel when you're stuck in a house where people stop listening. He told me about his mother, how cold things had been before she left, how his dad always hid things under a smile and routine. And the more we talked, the more I felt seen again. Like I mattered. Like someone finally remembered how to look at me. But with every word, guilt twisted deeper inside me. Was I falling into something that was already broken before I ever got here? Or was I becoming the crack that would finally shatter everything? I didn't have answers. But I knew one thing. If Earl found out what was growing between Jason and me, there'd be no walking back. The rain started again that night. Soft at first, then heavier, tapping against the windows like a warning. Earl had been gone all day. No calls. No messages. Just like before. But this time, the silence felt sharper. Jason and I were sitting in the living room, the TV playing low in the background, both of us pretending to pay attention, but neither of us watching. The tension was impossible to ignore. Jason leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "He knows something," he said, not looking at me. "Maybe not everything. But he's watching." I didn't answer. I could feel it too, Ul's glances, the sudden quiet, the way he came home and lingered in doorways like he was trying to catch something in motion. My marriage had already been fragile, but now, it felt like it was held together with thread. And Jason. Jason was the one person who made the cracks feel real, not just imagined. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I whispered, not even sure who I was saying it to. Jason finally looked at me. Neither did I. But here we are. The front door clicked. We both froze. Ul was back. I stood up fast, smoothing my shirt, heart racing so loud I could barely hear the storm outside. Jason stayed where he was, calm but alert, like he already knew what was coming. Ul stepped inside slowly, his expression unreadable, clothes damp from the rain. He looked around the room. Then his eyes landed on me. "And then Jason. You two always this close now?" he asked, voice low and steady. The room went quiet. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Ul dropped his keys on the table. "I stopped by Paul's bar earlier. You remember Paul, right? He said he saw my son's car parked outside our house all night, a few nights back." I swallowed hard. Jason stood up now too. He didn't move toward me. He didn't speak. He just looked straight at Ul. The storm outside cracked with thunder. Ul took a slow step forward. "So I'm gonna ask this once, and I want the truth." I felt like the walls were closing in. My heart thudded against my ribs. The room felt smaller than it ever had. What the hell is going on in this house? Jason didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Ul, unmoved, calm in a way that only made the air feel heavier. I could feel the sweat on the back of my neck, my hands cold even though the room felt too warm. My voice caught in my throat. There were 100 things I could have said. Excuses. Denials. But none of them came out. Ul stepped further into the room, water dripping from his jacket onto the hardwood floor. "You want the truth?" Jason finally said, voice even. "Then stop pretending you haven't already figured it out." Ul blinked. Just once. I couldn't tell if he was surprised or if he'd been expecting that answer all along. His face didn't show anger, not yet, but it showed something worse. A slow, simmering tension, just waiting to break. "I trusted you," Ul said quietly. His words meant more for me than for Jason. "Both of you." "I didn't plan this," I said, stepping forward. "It just happened." Ul looked at me now, really looked, and for the first time in a long while, I saw pain behind his eyes instead of distance. But before either of us could say more, the front door creaked open again. We all turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Mid-30s, dark coat, long red hair soaked from the rain. Her eyes swept across the room and landed on Ul. "I thought you said you handled it," she said. Jason's jaw tightened. Ul's whole body froze. "Who is she?" I asked, voice low. The woman stepped inside, slowly. "I'm the reason he comes home late. I'm the one he's been with when you were sitting in that big empty house wondering if your marriage was still real." My knees almost gave out. Jason reached toward me, instinctively, but I stepped back. Ul didn't say a word. "She wasn't supposed to show up here," he finally muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The woman smirked. You think I'd let you keep lying to both of us? I told you, I'm not your secret anymore. The room went silent again. Jason's fists were clenched now, his entire body tense. I stared at Ul, trying to understand how deep the betrayal really went. All this time, I'd been afraid of being the one who ruined the marriage. But now it was clear. I wasn't the first to cross a line. And maybe I wasn't the one who crossed it the farthest. For a long second, no one moved. The only sound was the rain pounding harder outside, like it was trying to drown out everything we couldn't say. I looked at Ul, searching for something in his face, regret, anger, even shame. But there was only silence. The woman at the door crossed her arms, her presence sharp, almost smug, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Jason's eyes were on me now, protective but unreadable. Everything we had been hiding was out in the open, but not in the way we expected. I wanted to tell you, Ul finally said, his voice rough. But things got complicated. You had another life, I snapped, my voice cracking. And you still walked into this house, every night pretending like I was the problem. Jason stepped forward. He used both of us. Lied to us both. But I never lied to her. Ul's jaw tightened. And what you two did, was that honesty. There it was. The edge. The boiling point. But before I could respond, the woman in the doorway spoke again. Let me save you both some time, she said, looking directly at me. Ul's been planning to leave you for months. That's why I'm here. He said tonight would be the night. I stared at her, then back at Ul. He didn't deny it. You said you'd end it, she continued. But clearly, you're still playing house. That was it. The last thread snapped. I'm done, I whispered. With both of you. Ul's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means you can go be with her. And I can stop pretending this home was ever a home. I turned to Jason, and for a second, something soft passed between us, something real. But before either of us could say a word, there was a buzz at the door. We all turned, confused. Ul moved to open it. Standing there was a man in a black coat, holding a large envelope. I'm here to serve legal documents, he said calmly. Divorce papers, for Mr. Ul Harris. Ul blinked. What? Who filed? The man handed them over and nodded toward me. Filed this morning. Jason looked at me, stunned. I hadn't told him. That was the twist. I'd already made my choice. Ul stood frozen, the divorce papers clutched in his hand like they didn't make sense, like he was still trying to catch up to what was happening. The woman he'd brought into our lives stepped back in disbelief, her confidence slipping as she looked between us. Jason hadn't said a word, but I could feel his eyes on me, confused, surprised, maybe even proud. I filed this morning, I said again, my voice steady. Before anything happened today. Before you came home. I already knew this wasn't working. I just hadn't told you yet. The rain had slowed outside, like the storm had served its purpose. Ul didn't argue. For once, he had no excuses, no long explanations. Maybe he knew deep down, I had already left this marriage long before today. And maybe that's why he didn't fight it. The woman stepped away from the doorway, shaking her head. You always find a way to lose the people who care, she said under her breath. Then she left without another word. Jason walked up beside me, his voice low. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to think you were the reason I left, I said. Because you weren't. All was already gone. You just reminded me I still deserved something real. He nodded slowly, the tension between us softening. We didn't need to rush anything. Whatever was between us could wait, because now, for the first time in years, I had space to breathe. The next morning, the house felt different. Quieter, but not heavy. Al had packed a few things and left early. Jason stayed for coffee, but we didn't speak much. We didn't need to. Everything had been said. The chaos, the lies, the love, we'd survived it all, somehow. As he stood by the door, ready to leave for now, he looked back at me and smiled gently. Let me know when you're ready, for whatever comes next. I nodded. Maybe this wasn't the ending I had imagined when I first got married. But it was the one that gave me a new beginning. And maybe, that's what mattered more.